Hi there, welcome at already the 4th edition of the B2B Influencer Marketing Chat Series. My name is Mariska Kestelo and I'm the founder of Word of Mice. And today we're going to talk about ambassadors and influencers and how influencers and ambassadors can contribute towards your company or your destination. Today we have actually two hosts. We have Ivo Franschitz and Henrik van Arnold to talk about this very dynamic and interesting topic. Ivo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, with pleasure I will. Thank you very much, Mariska, for your invitation to join, that Henrik and I can share join this conversation and share whatever we think to the specific topic of today. As said, my name is Ivo Franschitz. I'm the founder and owner of a company called Enited, which is an international consultancy firm in our world of business events and live communication. And we are based in Vienna.
Mm-hmm. So thank you very much, Henrik.
I'm Henrik van Arnold, and I'm a Swede from the beginning, but I'm living in Vienna since 2007, more or less. I've been commuting in between Stockholm and Vienna, but here I am, and working closely with the team of Enited. And my background is it's blended, but the last years I've been was the team leader for the Gothenburg Convention Bureau in Sweden, and then later on for the team leader for the Stockholm Convention Bureau in Sweden as well. And now I'm here working as a senior consultant at Enited. I'm happy to be here, and I'm just enjoying life.
Well, great. Thank you so much for joining our session. We will go now, directly into the questions. The reason why we set up this webinar is to talk about two topics, about ambassadors and B2B influencer marketing. There's a lot of, I would say, misperception or misunderstanding about the words influencers and ambassadors. So I would ask you, Henrik or Ivo, I would say it's up to you to reply to the question. Perhaps first, Henrik. What is actually the current definition, because you worked also for convention bureaus, what is the current definition and role of ambassadors for destinations?
Easier said, it's very, very different. I wouldn't say there is a formal definition of the thing, but what so far we've done with meeting ambassadors is actually pinpointed individuals for a special project, special business event that we like to host in our city. And in many cases, the associations or corporations, mainly associations so far, has in their request for proposals actually mentioned that you have to have a local meeting ambassador, which is then representative for the special topic, or a member of the association as such, or maybe a board member, which is even better. And through these people, the convention bureaus have been communicating in quite large extent with the associations, especially when I'm finding out what do they really want to have from a destination behind all these infrastructural things, what we call the hygienic factors, like accommodation and venues, etc., etc., etc. But what is the purpose behind it? And the ambassadors have been extremely good in that, because they are the persons who are actually trusted by the associations. We, from the convention bureaus, we're more or less coming like, salesperson saying hi, and we are coming together with 15 other destinations saying hi. Yeah. But the ambassadors has really been trusted. They know them already. They don't have to build up the social connection from the beginning. But then in the process of getting a business event to a destination, you work convention bureau work closely with the meeting or the business event ambassadors, the meeting ambassadors, to actually convince the association that this destination might be a place for our next business event.
Yeah.
So that would, I say, that is the role of ambassadors, and many of you listening to this already know that. And then there are different ways on how you work with them locally. It's part of education, information, how you treat them socially and get them together for different kind of events, etc., etc., etc. But that it differs extremely much between destinations, what you actually mean and what you do.
Yes, I totally agree. I think it also depends on the size of this, the location, of course, of the destination. What type of ambassadors do you need? But Ivo, do you have anything? To add to the, let's say, the role and definition of ambassadors?
No, I think Henrik basically defined it very well. I mean, how in the past and still currently ambassador programs, and obviously that's something in our industry we always have a little difficult with, is definitions, and it's using the right words in the right moments. But I agree, that's basically also how I understand the functionality or the purpose of an ambassador program.
Yeah, because we use now also a lot the term, I would say, influencers, of course, for the destinations. Also, in, like you said, in our industry, we don't always use the right word or using the right definition. How do you see the roles of influencers for destinations?
For destinations, I think the core principle of what Henrik described is simply you're looking for multipliers for achieving one goal, is hopefully hosting winning a business event for your destination. That hasn't changed. I mean, that personal contact, the relationship, which at the end is the basic in our industry, or the basic recipe in our industry in general, is still the same and remains valid. So there's nothing which really changed. I think the only way the changes are happening is simply the way, obviously, not only our business, but how we communicate, how we interact, how we consume. And that means also that nowadays the so-called influencer, I think, in my opinion, presents a much bigger and better chance also for destinations to achieve the same outcome. Oops.
Someone is not muted.
Okay, the same outcome, the same result. I think the influences, and we see it in other industries, whether it's in the corporate world, where it's all about messages and brands and all these elements, and as well as in tourism in general, you see already that influencers have become the new ambassadors. And this is what I see. I see it's an opportunity and also probably a necessity to rethink and review any existing ambassador programs and kind of forwarded or updated it to the version 2.0. And in a nutshell, I think influencers nowadays, because that's also what they do, they influence people to make decisions, maybe not directly, maybe indirectly. And influencers simply for me stands nowadays much more or a better definition of how destinations need to start rethinking their relationship programs. As being somebody who is not only working for one specific project, as Henrik described before, but in general creates a community, multipliers over multipliers for a destination, which goes also even beyond our business event side. It is how a destination develops in general. And the way and means we communicate nowadays, it is simply different. So I think an influencer program, so to speak, is more, how can I say, up to date, is better in defining actually what this whole program and the purpose of having a program is all about.
Yeah, because if I, I'm a big fan of influencers, but if I mention the word influencers, also in our industry, the first thing that people, that comes top of mind is, of course, beauty influencers, fashion influencers. We think it in a B2C environment, and not something I would say that is related with, first of all, a long-term relationship. Second of all, something that is related with expertise, because they think they're just for sales. So it's really interesting that you see influencers, ambassadors and influencers in a sort of in a sort of, I would say, not saying a same role. And also because we're living now in a special time. We're living now during COVID-19. Who would have thought that, I would say, 2 or 3 months ago. So I would be interesting to have your point of view to say, why do play ambassadors now and in the near future I would say a bigger role, especially during the times I would say we are experiencing now and also afterwards.
Henrik,
I can do.
yeah, please go ahead, Henrik.
Yeah,
I don't think this has nothing to do with the COVID-19.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's like this is a long-term process that you either have started working with. I know many of the attendants today or the participants today have done for many years. What maybe the difference today is now you have more of the time to actually look into how you work with influencers or your meeting ambassadors, and be much more structured in the way you do, and look into what you have, not just because you are looking for a business event to bid for 2024 or whatever, but how could I, as a convention bureau or an organization as well, reach out to people I think are crucial to make people aware of our destination as such. Not just about the particular project, but how can we speak with one voice? How could we reach out to the world and say, hey, this destination is good for business events, but it might also be reaching out to influencers in the corporate part, saying this might be also interesting for establishing business in our region. So I think forget about the COVID thing, but use the time that you might have a little bit more now to really get into and say, define what you really want with this.
Yeah, well, I like what you're saying, because this has nothing to do with COVID. I totally agree, but what I see from, well, I've spoken with a lot of suppliers, and perhaps it's also due to our, I would say, being humans, that a lot of people block. And like you said, we have some people have now more time to think about new project, and creating an ambassador program is not something that you start from something tomorrow. So it takes time to prepare, to align with your strategy, with your goals. So it is interesting that I think, again, the trust factor comes also here. We spoke about it in a previous edition. Now again, it comes back. But I think it's interesting that people should work now on their ambassador program. And I don't see, if I look in my from potential clients or network, I don't see many. I would say I don't hear many stories say people, oh, we use now the time to create and now a new ambassador, or review our current program because we might need some different profiles, or we have adapted our strategy. So how can you? I would say, I'm not saying convinced, but yeah, Ivo, what would you
sorry,
like
I'm
to
just no, please. I'm sorry. I just want to say, I think the COVID-19 obviously is a topic which is going on a daily basis and running around in our heads in all different directions.
Yeah.
I think Henrik said one aspect actually where COVID-19 is an opportunity and not always a challenge only is the time aspect. It's true. We suddenly are having resources, or we're rethinking how to use resources. This is the first one. The second one is it is also accelerator. We all know as a human being, we have these phases of how dealing with situation. And I think we are still, depending on the journey, the process we're making all over the world in different regions with different stages we are in to deal with the health crisis. I think people obviously need to somehow cope with and try to find a direction again. But I think rather soon, exactly what you said, this is what every people will start to rethink, because there is a future after COVID-19, and that's guaranteed. And I think pressure and uncommon situation force us sometimes, and this is for me the accelerator, forces us to think outside of the box, because we are not just taking that as maybe or not, but really as an opportunity. And that's what I think why also COVID-19 actually is an opportunity more than a challenge. So I think that process of people will come starting to the conclusion, now it's the time to think forward, to move forward, is I think very fast approaching, because before summertime, many of all our colleagues and dear stakeholders in this industry will need to simply move forward.
Yeah, I
so
fully
this is
agree.
a little bit what I think in the near future. The other thing is, if I might add, of course, we all have the challenge, because when you talk to 15 people today or 100 people today about the future near prospects of regaining a certain way of normality, you get probably 115 different answers regarding the timelines. So it's reading a crystal ball, but that should not keep us from taking the risk and taking the steps necessary.
Yeah.
And so this is a little bit why I see the COVID-19 obviously playing a role in it, but I agree in basically with Henrik said, that transformation process from an ambassador maybe to an influencer program or tool or strategy is something which has been in the making.
Yeah.
And COVID-19 is not going to stop it.
No, well, I hope, I sincerely hope not, and I hope that also people will use this opportunity, use this time to also for, let's say, personal reflection, but also on, of course, on their businesses as an employee or as a business owner to reflect, to use this time as reflection and to see what we can do in the near, I would say, in the short term and the long term. But going back into the, I would say, the insides of the ambassador program, what would you, first I will ask Henrik, what are the benefits? Because I think there are also a lot of destinations joining us on this call, and they would say, okay, perhaps I don't have an ambassador program yet. What are the benefits to start an ambassador/influencer program, I would say, on a short term and on a long term?
Yeah, I mentioned some of them before. I mean, sometimes it's a demand. If you look into the business event part, for associations having a demand, there must be a local representative from the destination or from the country who is part of in the bidding process. Yes. But that is a particular, what we before called a meeting ambassador for a particular project. So that is on a short or middle long term, like what it takes 2 to 4 hours years to get in a business event into a destination. So that you have to have. I would say to create something today is much more on a level which actually is above the project, the particular project business event thing, is to start contacting, influencing headmasters, rectors of universities, politicians, directors for government authorities, major companies, going to your business region development entities in the city, and start talking about your destination as such. How can we speak with one voice to attract, yes, business events, but also researchers or companies coming to your destination? How do we do that together? And doing that, finding these influences on a non-project based level gives you then, hopefully, or I've seen the result in some time, that they can actually influence other people about the awareness of the destination, but also within their organizations, going in and say, hey guys, you are blessed to actually take the role of a meeting ambassador for a special project. And that takes years to do this. There's a long structure, there's a long structured work behind it, and you have to take the first steps, and then starting on the top and then going slowly down in the organizations. Finding not just, I have it now, but you might be interested in the long run to support us, to be our voice for a particular project, or being the voice for the destination in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess there are many other people sitting here listening who wants to have their opinions, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm
indeed.
very curious to Eileen or I guys or
I will ask
Marie,
Alicia if
yeah.
she has any questions popping up in the chat. We'll first go to Ivo. If you have anything, if you have anything to add on, for I would say on the short and the long term, to convince the destinations to start with an ambassador program, despite that it will, like Henrik said, of course, it's not something that will, it's putting the seeds in the ground and not harvest, of course, the next day, but it takes time.
2-3 sentences only. It's a matter of perspective. As I said, it's time, but it's also a matter of what I really want to achieve as a destination in the future. And I think the ambassador program transformation, maybe into an influencer version, so to speak, of it, is just one piece of the puzzle. Destinations, I think, for the future need to rethink their purpose and their proposal, so to speak, to the market. And I think those who don't want to say stop selling, but those who understand their efforts as marketing a destination, developing and market destination, is not about infrastructures. It's not about Henrik mentioned the hygienic factors, but it's about creating platforms for communication, creating live communication platforms. Then obviously the approach of an influencer in creating that has a completely different meaning than if I choose and pick and choose individual people to convince them or ask them to help me multiply my voice to get a business into my destination, business event into my destination. Yeah. I think this is a little bit the different approach, and I think that is what also I think the future belongs to the smart destinations and not necessarily to the big ones. This is what I like to dare to say, and I think this transformation of one element of a destination marketing effort is just the result of it, or part of it.
Of course, yeah. Because I suppose, and I know some people on this call already have an ambassador program, some not. Some of them, if I think of, I would say, more old-fashioned ambassador program, they're mostly I would say professors of high schools who are involved. I would say, not to insult you guys, but to have the 50+ men guys in a suit. Henrik, you already said you need to have a diverse group of people. So to give some, I would say, concrete tips or suggestions for people who are listening today, how can people adapt their current ambassador program, I would say, and going to the version 2.0?
I think, the ambassadors program are fine, but I think you have to think about the next step, the next level maybe. Not going only on the people for a particular business event, to try to get a particular business event to a destination, but in much more general terms, going to the next level on influence and try to find door opener, find people who can make other people aware of the destination as such, as an destination to invest in or to make business events in or whatever it is, or come as a researcher to the city. And I think that is, if you can do that, and in the long run, it will help you finding these project meeting ambassadors. If you try to go on the next level and speaking a general term and saying, can we have the same message out there in the world? And I would say my ideal world is, of course, when it comes to business and business events, in the relocation of the convention bureaus together with a regional or city business development entity, where you have people from both worlds and the contacts from both worlds to sit together, to talk to, and to swap ideas on who is who are the major multiplier, the major influences we need to approach, not just for the particular business event, but for the whole of the city. It's kind of more of a marketing plan. But in the end, it will help you to find also the particular project, the meeting ambassadors. I think that's the only thing. I can say for Stockholm, we invited directors from the different city entities and had a conversation with them, a little bit of education, information, trying to find out where are they today, what are they doing, how much involved are they in international networking, etc., etc. And we just asked them kindly to please, could you go out in your organizations and not just say you and you and you and going to be a meeting ambassador, but finding out, is this a way for us to get more international recognized as a city?
Yeah.
And one of the things might be to host business events in a long time. But how could you talk about our destination within your international network or national network as well? So, and that worked quite well. And within in Gothenburg, we started with the rectors of the universities, and then they helped us to spread the message, to make aware of the internationalization of the university, not pursued only by business events, but business events actually helps to do that when you bring in people from other countries and they see what you're doing, and you might be ending up having guest professors or whatever from other cities.
Yeah,
but
indeed.
I don't know if I can be more direct, but I think that is the idea behind it.
Ivo, if you have anything to add, I think Henrik, you already replied also a bit on the last question. But
Exactly.
Ivo,
I'm also curious, like Henrik, to finally hear the other voices. I mean,
we have 2 minutes.
No, don't worry. No, I'm not pushing you, Mariska, but I'm just really curious to see, because as I said, we have seen so many, heavy hitters in our industry here. It's really great to get in this chat room, so to speak, and chat room conversations for me the key. So I'm really curious to hear, but really, again, trying to be, and people who know me that I love to talk a lot. So I'm trying to be really constrain myself into 3-4 sentences. And I think, for me at least, if I think about influencer, there are 2 things which comes to my mind. And you said, I know influencer definitions have also sometimes the wrong or not so positive perception or taste. Influencers are, for me, you need to think in communities, and you think it about on a permanent basis. You do that, you suddenly also start to realize for your destination that if you think in communities, it's not anymore about one specific business events project. It's not about one specific industry. There are so many communities out there within your destination and outside your borders, so to speak, that can be of so great help to multiply your message. And this is what this is all about. And as Henrik said, it's a different level. It's something completely different than reaching out still, and it's still valid to do so. To individual people, you might think they are great multipliers for one specific project. But this is the difference. For me, it's influences, it's communities, is a permanent basis.
Yeah, indeed. And because we have now, one question left before we go to the questions of the participants. But you already gave a bit, I would say, your answer, Henrik. I see my connection is a bit slow. But how do you select the right ambassadors? I mean, if I look from my point of view to influencers, we always look towards the strategy, towards a short-term, long-term strategy, like you also said. What is the audience? What type of events do you want to get to your city? I suppose the selection of ambassadors is also, like you already said, it's not something that happens from one until the other day. So I suppose it's also a very long-term strategic decision. So how do you select the right people who want to involve for a long-term into your destination? Do you look for how do you find these people? Perhaps you can give some tips or some insights how you've set up at the Gothenburg Convention Bureau.
Yeah, so for again, ambassadors for a project, that is a work on finding what we did in I give you an example. In Gothenburg, we tried to see we started looking into, oh, that's a good meeting, we'd like to have that. But in the end, we said, okay, let's start from the top of the university or the Chalmers, the technology university. Talk to the rector, then go next level to the deans, next level to the department, and next to the small institutions within, and trying to be pinpoint on what is important for the university, what is important for this faculty, what is important for this department, and who to get internationalized, to be more aware where you are strong in research. And doing so, we also found out that you found someone in the cellar sitting 24/7 doing research, and nobody's seen him for the last 24 years. And he was a brilliant person because he was actually connected. And he was amazing in his research area. Maybe he's not an influencer, but he's a good, if he's a member of an association, he's a good ambassador. The influencers as such, when it comes to the multiple level, the higher level, is mainly looking to the strategy of your destination. What are your strong points? If it's food and beverage, food, is it transportation, is it chemicals, it is tourism, or whatever it is. What is it? And within these areas, it's not that very difficult to find the people, mainly with a very big mouth, anyway, who are articulating a lot of these strategies when it comes to the different specialities you have a destination. And saying, okay, this person is head of the Gothenburg Harbor Association. Go to her and ask her, how can we do this together? Would you be prepared to be our, not just door opener for port or harbor meetings, but also within the international network, talking about Gothenburg as a destination, which is, it's a good one. It has a good harbor, actually. So they have their own interest to speak about the destination, to speak about the port of the harbor of Gothenburg. So that is, and that is not so difficult. It's difficult to get the time to sit down with them,
Yes,
and you have to have the right arguments. Don't start with, hey guys, I have a meeting, I would like to have you there. But start, we are in the same destination and we are part of the same strategy of this destination. We think that working together with business events or your strategies and networking,
have a common interest.
Have a common interest. And we do this together, and we might be a small part of it, but don't forget about us. And then keep the conversation over years, sometimes over years. And people are always changing. You have sometimes to start all over again. But do that and try to find a kind of social belonging. Ivo said the communities, and I think that's very good. Social communities, skills communities, information communities together, because they love to meet other people and show how important they are and how good influencers, multipliers they actually are. And they like to see the other people. And they, in a city in Gothenburg, 1 million people with small or 800,000 in the region, it was quite easy to find these people. And they had other contacts within other areas of the city, and they were the multipliers. They talked about their own things, and they talked about us, and they talked about the message. It was not that complicated, but it takes time.
Yes, indeed. But I think in general, ambassadors and influencer marketing, I always say it's not rocket science. Everyone can create a program, an influence, if it's an influencer campaign or an ambassador's program or a combination of both, but it takes time. And therefore, this moment would be an interesting moment to set up your campaign. I see we have now 10 minutes left, so and I know there are a lot of questions came in, so I will give the word to Alessia, who collected all the questions from the chat, and I saw some interesting things coming by.
Thank you,
Open the floodgates.
The first question is from Russell, and from a person who is already working for an ambassador program. She's asking if now ambassador can play a special role in terms of added value, and I think she wants to know how and to what extent.
Henrik, you want to take that because you phrased that term of the emotion economy as kind of being very important, especially in times as we have now.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I don't think this is a COVID-19 thing, but and now Ivo already said, but my oldest son actually, he mentioned he has a coffee house in Stockholm, and in this COVID time, everything was closed. They were allowed to have open, and what they invested in years of social relations with their clients paid back amazingly, because when people were forced to stay home, they had this little coffee place. They came to him, and he made business like never before. He called this the emotion economy. It plays back, it comes back. It's kind of, what do you call it, the karma or something like that. So if you invest time in people, keeping social contacts with them, it doesn't have to be connected with a business thing in particular. You just keep them warm, show that you care about them. And then it might end up that you will have a better professional cooperation in a year or half a year, whatever it could be. I don't know if that is the answer for the question.
I think so. We have really many questions.
Yes, so
yes. So there are two questions from Valeska. First of all, she's asking for a best practice. So she would like to know a case history, a best practice in running a destination ambassador program. Actually, she's asking also, yes, here, a good example of a real destination ambassador program, how it was developed, what were the problems, how long did it take, and which platforms were used, communication channels, objectives, target. Really long question.
So an entire case study this.
Yes.
I like the curiosity. But I think
call me. I can help you.
We have only 7 minutes, guys. We have only 7 minutes, and we have a couple of other questions. So
who has 24 hours? Stay on the line.
No, I would say there is no role for this. An ambassador program could be anything, incorporating the social thing, the education part, getting people together. But it also could be very frank, finding some particular people you think is very interesting for particular business events, and try to hunt them down, and then you have ambassadors. It's not maybe a program, and don't make it complicated. Make it short, a quick start with this. Find these people you need, and then building up from that, building up this community of influencers or ambassadors, whatever you like to call them. And to find them, sometimes you need to start on a higher level with the multipliers, the higher level people, where you're not talk particular about a meeting or business event, but more in general, what can that give to your destination?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just to add, it's basically there's no cookie cutter recipe. I think because it's based on relationships, and relationships you build one-on-one, and not by copying and pasting.
Yeah.
I mean, we worked with last year with Azerbaijan, this year as well, Azerbaijan, and they started 1st of January at the Convention Bureau, and quite a couple of months later they started the what they call the Meeting Ambassadors Program, and after 5 months they had 300 people they met, but they were very consistent. They worked very structured. I mean, and everybody's not active in getting the particular meetings in, but they are part of making Azerbaijan visible in the world.
Thank you. There's now a question from Monique. She's asking, how many hours on average per week would you need to dedicate on an ambassador program?
From 1 to 40.
Perhaps it would be interesting, because Monique is working for Utrecht in the Netherlands, so perhaps to start small. I mean, like you said, for Azerbaijan, it's an entire country where you have 300 people. Perhaps you can start also on a smaller scale, you don't need to have 300 people perhaps to say, okay, we start an ambassador program with 5 or 10 people. Would that be a suggestion, Ivo?
I think, I mean, 300 people, as Henrik mentioned, is as a defined potential target group for building an ambassador program. So not everybody's automatically become one. And I think the recipe to that is, step by step, first take your first step, a second step, find the right people, and then you build that. And then it becomes a little bit of a snowball effect. So I think it's very important in the sense to not overshoot and overreach. Because again, as Henrik said, it is all linked together. You need to have first the idea of what kind of basic strategy you have as a destination. And then accordingly, you see where an quote relationship program, like an ambassador program or in the future an influencer program would fit in. But again, this is something which the old saying, Rome was not built in one day, that would also is valid for any kind of relationship programs and tool you said. So unfortunately, there's no really, again, 1, 2, 3 recipe to follow.
Okay.
I think it's the same also for the next question, because Maria is asking which are the destinations that can be considered as a reference in this issue of the ambassador program, and how long can it take to implement an ambassador program, and how many people are usually involved?
Cool. Again, resources, it depends obviously how much of importance you give to that tool in your whole marketing efforts. I think it is the most important thing about, as many others, is the consistency. So if you plan on resources, have at least one person who can really dedicate, maybe not 40 hours a week, but a good amount of hours a week to work on that. So consistency is always what counts. To setting it up, and Henrik, probably you better in giving examples, but I think also, again, the interesting thing is that we would assume that all those known successful destinations in our industry leading every year, statistics and charts would all run a very successful ambassador program, but actually it's not the case. So I wouldn't even know to say, okay, pinpoint and say, look at them and then simply learn and do it their way. I don't know, Henrik, do you have anybody specific in mind?
No, not really. I know there have been, Copenhagen was very good at that. They made a very big deal of it. They were actually advertising for people from the universities, really big, as on newspapers. All that. We want to have meeting ambassadors. I know Scotland, Eileen, Scotland had a very ambitious meeting ambassadors program some years. I don't know if it's alive. I know you have it Glasgow. You have it still. I know Gothenburg was quite good at it. We never called it an ambassador program, but they did a good job. Very structured. What else do I know on that? I also, ICA has, if you remember ICA, on their homepage, you have actually a kind of do's and don'ts, thank you, to actually set up ambassadors program.
Okay, yeah.
So you can find them hints there actually, and it's all about resources and it's all about the time that you can see. But I mean, how many destinations are not working with the members to keep them happy? I would say if you take part of that, working with the members, if you have partners and members, and working with the multipliers, the influences instead, I think that is a more important thing in the long run.
Yeah. Well, just looking towards, sorry to interrupt you, Henrik, but I'm looking to the time because we have 45 minutes, but I see we have some more interesting questions. So the people who have to leave, how many questions do we have left, Alessia?
Actually, just one, which is connected to the previous one. So a person from Cape Town is asking if it's possible to share a strategy of an ambassador program. So again, like Valeska, a best practice of an ambassador program is almost the same. Yeah.
ICA. Look at ICA.
Yeah.
ICA is a good starting point. Thank you. Definitely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Talk to Eileen.
Who is on the chat indeed.
And now she just left. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, Handan.
Yeah. Well, because we, I would say it was very interesting to talk with Henrik and Ivo today about ambassadors. There are a lot of questions, so it means there is a lot of interest and there's a lot of, I would say, also potential to start. But as there are a lot of questions for case studies and examples, every city and every destination is different, and every strategy is different, and every target audience they want to attract is different. So it is very difficult to say, okay, this. It's like with clothes, everyone is looking for, I would say, looking for something different. So it really is a tailor-made long-term process where trust, again, is also a very, I would say, a very big factor. And think long-term, and not something that you would say, you put the seeds in the ground and tomorrow you can harvest. It will take some more time. So I would say thank you so much, Ivo and Henrik, for your time and for your suggestions and for your sharing your expertise. If there are any other questions, you can put them here in the chat now, or you can send them to us, and we will reply to your questions. And also a huge thank you, Alessia, for joining me again on this session. And next week's session, it's always on Thursday at 3 p.m. So you can book every week. Same time, same day, same time. Next week, we will talk with Keith Jenkins. He's the founder of iAmbassador. It's one of the biggest communities of travel influencers, where we'll talk about the relationship between travel and MICE influencers. So that will be the topic for next week. You will get the link, of course, to register for free. So hope to see you next week, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. So see you all, guys, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining, guys. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Take care. Take care, friends.